right, let's move now to Cape Town. Fresh from 8 days of a violent taxi strike, the city of Cape Town is once more pushing for a way to get the power to make sure its trains are back on track. Cape Town wants to formally discuss rail devolution with the national government. Now, the city says it's willing to work together and has been more than patient, hoping for a date to start the process of taking over Metro Rail from the Passenger Rail Agency. But yesterday, the mayor said he was prepared to declare an intergovernmental dispute if the matter was not addressed by the end of this month. The presidency then hitting back, saying it will not be threatened. Let's speak to the Mayor of Cape Town, Geordin Hill-Lewis. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. So a level of sort of public argy-bargy going on between you and the President. Has there been any development behind the scenes on whether there's going to be movement before the end of the month?
Absolutely nothing, Sally. Good to be with you. We've been in various forms of correspondence with the presidency for 18 months now, and have basically, beyond the normal just acknowledgement of our letters and promises to get back to us, we've had basically radio silence. We've had no substantive response at all. Instead, we've had a lot of mixed messages nationally about whether this is still the government's intention or not, even though it is their stated policy as adopted by cabinet, and there is an adopted document to that effect. There's been a lot of backtracking and sideways movement, and that's what we're trying to cut through so we can actually make some progress.
So if there's nothing further, on the 31st of August, will you go ahead and declare this intergovernmental dispute?
I think we really have to. We are at the point now that we really have to. Of course, I would prefer not to do that because apart from anything else, it is a lengthy and circuitous process. But it's, once you've asked that many times for some basic answer and basic progress, then that is the only route left to you.
It's also not a great way to start what should be a working relationship. What does it actually mean, an intergovernmental dispute?
So the Constitution and the Intergovernmental Relations Act says that government bodies and government departments can't just take one another to court. So ordinarily, the easy way to resolve this would be to go straight to court, but you can't do that. You have to go through a statutory, a legally prescribed mediation process, which is called an intergovernmental dispute. And only if that process fails and you still don't get the progress you need, then you can finally, at a later stage, go to court. So it's a lengthy process, and I'd really prefer not to use it. But we are now 18 months down the track, so to speak, and that's since the National Cabinet, remember, declared that they want to devolve rail, and they have done absolutely nothing about it since then.
So what do you suspect is going on here? I mean, we are running into an election year in just a few months' time. Do you suspect that there are those within Cabinet, perhaps, that don't want Cape Town to have this as a feather in their cap? Do you suspect politics is at play, or do you think it's just a matter of people getting their ducks in a row and a lot of other priorities?
I think there's a great, I think it's an Orwell quote. I might be misremembering this, but you should never assign to conspiracy what can be better explained by incompetence. And that quote comes to mind here because, I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is not political, that this is a National Department of Transport that is really struggling to understand how it wants devolution to work and its devolution strategy. We have heard talk, this constant commitment to a devolution strategy document that is coming soon. We have seen no evidence of it at all. So I think that is probably the biggest part of this. I would hate to think that 1 million commuters in Cape Town who need the trains to run are being punished for political reasons by the national government.
And then the reality, of course, is that because the trains aren't running properly, commuters have to take more expensive taxis, which leads me back to what's been happening in the city. I spoke to Sontako last night. They acknowledged that the agreement does not say impoundments will stop. But we've heard from Santaco today saying that some of those vehicles over the weekend were impounded for the wrong reasons. And they gave a reason. They said that you cannot impound a taxi for overloading. Now, I've read through what Section 87 says. It speaks very clearly about roadworthiness, which can be even a small thing. It could be dangerous not to have working windscreen wipers, for example. And you can also impound for not having the right permits, etc. I didn't see anything about issues around overloading. Are you releasing those taxis that have been incorrectly impounded?
Yeah. So firstly, Section 87 says that you can impound for any contravention of license conditions. Now, the license conditions, there are 46 of them, and roadworthiness is just one of those 46. So 87 empowers you to impound for any contravention of any of those 46 license conditions. That is very, very clear in law. But we did make a commitment that for the next 14 days, while we make this list of so-called major and minor offences, that we will only stick to 4 things. That is no license, no operating permits, off-route, and roadworthiness. So in fact, one taxi was impounded for overloading. And in this 14-day hiatus, it should not have been, and that was returned. But part of the reason why we said you should stick to the full wording of the law is because when you have got 1,000 traffic officers on the road, and they have to make these judgment calls, yes or no, is this impoundable, isn't this impoundable, it makes it extremely difficult. It's very tricky. So, you know, as you've said, is something serious enough? So that's why it's actually better to just say, this is what the law says, we implement the law, end of story. So we have agreed to this 14-day negotiation process.
Talk to me about where those negotiations are. My understanding is you've got these 14 days now to try and just sort out the whole matter. Great that you guys are talking. So I want to know about the status of those talks, because we're also hearing that Santaco is planning to file an interdict against the city, or another one. Has that happened, and what is the status of any talks?
The taxi task team met for the first time today to begin the process of drawing up that list of major and minor offences. And I haven't seen the minutes of today's meeting, but I hear that it was productive. Unfortunately, Santaco said that they are not coming. So the city and province used the opportunity to work together to start drawing up at least a first proposal of this list of major and minor offences. And they had a productive discussion today. I hope that Santaco re-engages, because the 14 days are running, by the way. The 14 days started yesterday by their own request. And at the end of the 14 days, we are implementing the law as agreed in our written agreement. So that they had better come to the table soon. I've said to them for months, in fact, Sally, that I really wish they would stop threatening court action and get on with it. Because we believe that our position is unassailable in law. Section 87 is a very simple section to understand. It is very difficult to be confused about. We understand what legal powers we have, and we're very confident of our position in law.
Thank you very much for chatting to us about both issues this evening. Mayor of Cape Town, Geordin Hill-Lewis, despite the President saying don't threaten us, he says he will go ahead with declaring an intergovernmental dispute over the failure to get together and talk about devolving the powers of the Metro Rail to the city. But he is saying he is really hopeful that things will move quickly, and he wants a resolution.